Researchers who take Bigfoot seriously don't take every alleged Bigfoot video seriously. In fact, they're often the first to call foul on the fakers. So when they tell us they've seen video they think is legit, we take a look too.
From the early days of running into the fabled hominid in its element, to the use of modern technology to capture one of the most significant recordings when it comes to the legend that is Bigfoot, here is how this drone entered a restricted forest in a bid to capture the most shocking footage of Bigfoot ever. Everyone loves what a drone can do. Able to get into some of the most inaccessible places on the planet, it has proved to be quite useful in the sense that it can get us footage of amazing stuff that we were never able to reach in the past. That said, it has also helped us record some of the most bizarre and unbelievable events ever. For example, what do you make of it when your drone has captured clear footage on what seems to be the most elusive and most fabled creature out there in North America? From our own experience, such a scene has proved itself to be one of the most surreal experiences ever had by humans today. Join us as we take a look at how this drone got into this restricted forest before capturing the most shocking footage of Bigfoot ever. A short history of Bigfoot sightings. As bizarre as an encounter with Bigfoot could be, it would be remiss of us to forget to mention that this is not the first time anyone has had such an encounter. Indeed, this would be just one of the many times people had had the privilege of running into who they believed to be Bigfoot.
Exactly what we had on camera. It was proof to me and my dad, because who on a Tuesday night is a mile and a half into the woods running around with no flashlight?
For example, a forest ranger named Paul Freeman told us all that he actually came across the legendary creature back in the early 90s. The encounter proved to be so profound that it seemed to set the tone for how people reacted to these stories going forward. For starters, Freeman mentioned that he had this encounter with the creature when he was in the shadowy Blue Mountain of Washington. What is most interesting about Freeman's encounter in said mountains is that when he told his story, Freeman told us that he didn't just run into one Sasquatch. No, he reported that he just happened to run into an entire family of this strange creature. Imagine running into such a scene. Thankfully, Freeman was able to back such bizarre claims with footage. However, we have to deal with the fact that for some reason, when we get footage of Bigfoot, it always seems to be some grainy video that nobody cares for. Unfortunately, Freeman's footage would play into this cliché. That being said, the footage has proved itself to be one of the most compelling footage of Bigfoot out there today. To turn our attention once more to the fact that Freeman ran into an entire family of the legendary creature during his unbelievable encounter with Bigfoot, it seems to suggest that Bigfoot is far from the solitary creature that is believed to be wandering aimlessly in the woods. No, it seems that this fabled hairy giant has the ability to be a social creature.
The evidence collected by Paul Freeman and his network of researchers in the Blue Mountains has been closely examined by more PhDs and anthropologists than any other data set in all Bigfoot history.
Isn't it amazing that every day it seems as though we have something interesting to learn about this strange hominid? As usual, there were doubters who immediately claimed that this must be some sort of hoax or something, and who could blame them? After all, the search for Bigfoot is filled with blemishes caused by pranksters and hoaxers who seem to get some sort of kick from playing on the belief of others. However, the Bigfoot enthusiasts out there refuse to be distracted. They believe that this Freeman footage of this family of Bigfoots could give us some vital information when it comes to learning everything about the legendary creature that is Bigfoot. Bigfoot and the ATV driver. 2 decades or more later in the 2000s, we found that the search for Bigfoot is still mired in mystery. This time, we head over to the hard and unkind woods found close to a place known as Gum Hill. There, Chuck Newton, an ATV rider who decided that he was going to explore said woods, would get more than he ever bargained for when he would have the most unforgettable encounter for his entire life. Making his way through a creek with a camera strapped onto his chest, Newton was happy enough to record the footage of the rugged wilderness all around him. That is when he realized that he wasn't alone in these woods. Soon, he realized that he was in the presence of this tall and dark creature that was lurking in the darkness of the woods surrounding them. Shocked to a standstill, Newton was aware enough to know that he was not alone. What he didn't know was what he was dealing with. Indeed, he must have even thought that he was imagining things, that his mind was playing with him. However, The subtle rustling of the trees and the strange shadow of the dark figure lurking in the trees told him otherwise. No, he was not in these woods alone. Indeed, those who would come across the footage that Newton would upload online would also agree. Even some of the Bigfoot dissenters out there could not help but come up with theories of their own. They just had to admit that even if they didn't believe that this was Bigfoot, they saw that this figure moved in a way that was not attributed to any known animals that are out there today. No, this was not another bear or gorilla or some idiot in a suit. No, this could very well be the real deal. Maybe, just maybe, this man actually had an encounter with a legendary creature known as Bigfoot, Connecticut Yeti. As interesting as the Bigfoot in Gum Hill must be, wait till you hear about what went on over in Connecticut. What's quite interesting about this encounter is that we would have missed it all if not for this wedding photographer. Out on a job in Litchfield County, he must have been taking a look at all the footage and images that he captured during the event when he was startled to attention by this strange noise.
Where is he?
He's coming on. He's there. He's gonna pop up in a minute. There he is. He's popping up. Look for berries. Lots of berries.
After peeking around for a bit, he realized that the noise was coming from outside the building. Interesting, right? For some reason, he figured that it must have been some bear that was looking through the trash that was outside. As you do, our photographer decided that this was the best time to take a picture, so he fetched his camera and snuck a peek outside. Well, he'd be taken by surprise by what he saw because it turned out not to be a bear. Instead, our photographer saw that he was looking at this massive hairy creature that was making its way through the darkness on its two legs. Stunned by this massive creature and its long arms, the photographer somehow gathered himself to catch a recording of this creature before it wandered off into the darkness. As you can imagine, this was an interesting scene for anyone to come across. So when it made its way onto the internet, the Connecticut Yeti, or Sasquatch as it would eventually be known, would become something of an internet sensation. This should come as no surprise really, as people just could not get enough of what they were looking at. After all, there was every chance that this recording could be the real deal. The mere size and speed of the creature alone was enough to capture the imagination of many who had always believed that Bigfoot was really out there, making these remote woods their home. Add its strange limbs and body dimensions, and you'd find that this is not a clip that you can ignore or write off as a prank or a hoax. This didn't stop some of the dissenters from claiming that this could just be some guy in a suit or something, but they just couldn't explain the strange movements of the creature they were watching in the footage. As such, you can imagine that it didn't really matter what this creature was. Not really, especially as it seemed to reignite the fascination with the legendary Bigfoot at that point in time. With any luck, this would add to the enthusiasm and effort to bring the legend of Bigfoot to an end once and for all.
The way it comes out of the trees is what we call a Groucho walk. It's very typical of what witnesses say Bigfoot walks like, this strangely bent knee gait.
Independence Day, Bigfoot. Next up, we take a look at the time we had one of the most remarkable and memorable encounters with this creature ever. Turns out that on the 4th of July, one of America's most mythical creatures was sighted by this cameraman while he was out in the wilderness. Despite all these interesting factors, the most fascinating part of the footage that was captured by our cameraman was that there wasn't just one creature in the footage. No, there were two. Even more fascinating than that, it seemed to be that we were looking at the footage of a mother and child as they were making the forest their home. The scene was truly captivating. There was even a time that we were able to capture a recording of the mother as she looked right at the camera. As you can imagine, this footage created a ton of buzz on the internet. How amazing is it to capture the footage of these creatures? Furthermore, how cute it is to watch a mother tend to her child. Who even knew that this creature was capable of making familial bonds? After all, we always thought that he was a solitary creature, almost kind of like a tiger or something. That said, even tigers have to be birthed by someone. Even tigers have moms, right? Drone footage. With that in mind, we can see how Bigfoot isn't just some sort of strange creature that is making its way through the woods in North America. From the footage that we have shown you guys so far, we can see how this legendary cryptid is something of a social creature that is making itself at home out there in some of the most remote woods on the continent. Looking at that, we are reminded of the drone footage that caused quite a stir a while back. Judging by the other tales that we have told you about, it's fair to say that you can kind of tell when these footage are captured by accident or not. As such, when you look at the footage captured by the drone, you may come to realize that the people that took the footage weren't out there because they wanted to go camping. They were actually out there because they were on a mission. Indeed, they had even planned this trip out there by focusing on what looked to be a restricted area in such woods. That seemed to be the only place that they could achieve their goal of getting a recording of the legendary creature that is Bigfoot. We must appreciate these efforts because these restricted areas are cut off from the public for a reason. Considered to be the most dangerous part of the woods, the authorities would hate it if anyone got harmed because they wandered off to the wrong part of the woods. Well, our explorers over here didn't care. They knew that if they ever wanted to get that coveted footage of Bigfoot, then they would need to get into these restricted parts of the woods. Well, it turns out that they would be rewarded for their efforts when they made their way into the forest.
No way. Are you serious? What? What is that?
Well, its showing off must have helped the popularity of the footage because before we knew it, the footage went viral. While casual fans watched in amazement as the creature made its way through the woods in the footage, experts did all they could to figure out if this was the real deal or not. Looking for answers, they noticed some details that seemed to be just too authentic to replicate. For example, they couldn't ignore the details in the muscles of the creature. Just look at the way the muscles of the creature shifted as it made its way through these woods. That seemed to convince many of those who came across the footage, but alas, not all. Many others, especially those who had doubts about the existence of Bigfoot, were not in a hurry to just accept that he was the legendary creature because it had nice muscles. As such, these skeptics were quick to claim that this must have been some sort of hoax or something. Maybe some guy in a suit. Heck, it could even be the result of some sort of AI-generated footage. Imagine the lengths that people will go through to prove that Bigfoot is real. That being said, it has been said that if this was a fake, this was one of the best ones out there today. However, if this footage is real, this could be the breakthrough we've always wanted. Maybe one day, such a clip could help us figure out if this creature really exists, and if so, how it manages to stay in hiding for so long. The family of Bigfoot. Such close encounters with Bigfoot reminds us of why we find this legendary creature so fascinating. For every piece of evidence that we manage to dig up when it comes to Bigfoot, there seems to be dozens of questions that follow. For starters, if we find a footprint of the fabled creature, the question that seems to pop up is that these footprints never seem to be followed by a body. After all, if the creature was out there, it would have actually died, and at some point, someone would have come across its cadaver. These and other questions such as how do they live and what do they eat come to mind. As such, each sighting comes with a dose of fascination, as well as an inkling of the need to learn all we can about this legendary hominid. Indeed, all this is done with a search for the truth in mind. Maybe one day it could even help us get to the bottom of the mysteries behind the legendary creature that is Bigfoot. Another interesting thing about the search for the truth behind Bigfoot is the other questions that seem to come up along the way. For starters, the search for Bigfoot has made people wonder about if there are really places where a creature that is as massive as Bigfoot could hide without ever being detected. Is there really a place where this creature can live in solitude without human interference? Are there really secret pockets of solitude out there in the wilderness? The story is so fascinating that even the skeptics are forced to admit that there is something deeper when it comes to the search for the truth when it comes to Bigfoot. They have to come to terms with the fact that there is this longing for a mystery in a world where things are getting figured out every day. Mysteries such as Bigfoot is something that could make this world even more interesting than it is already. And as such, we can see how we may never stop, at least not until we bring Bigfoot out of the darkness. Until then, it seems as though people will continue to search for Bigfoot. With that in mind, it's fair to say that Bigfoot will continue to capture the imagination of the public. That is why the drone could prove to be one of the most important tools in the search for the truth. Just look at the so-called mother and child Bigfoot duo that we spoke about a few minutes ago. Remember how many of us believed that Bigfoot was just this solitary creature that was making its way through the wild? How many of us were amazed by the notion that there may be some sort of social construct that exists within this species? It does make sense though, doesn't it? After all, someone would have had to give birth to the legendary creature. No? Observing the pair, we could easily tell that there was a mother and child relationship that existed between them. Looking at it, some experts couldn't help but use this incident to compare the pair to humans. After all, it reminded them very much of a mother taking a walk with their kid. With that in mind, it made them wonder if there really are family trees that exist within the Bigfoot species. Aside from that, looking at the pair of strange creatures added some credence to the search for Bigfoot. Sure, it's a lot bigger and better than finding some grainy recording of some creature that is supposed to be Bigfoot, but there is just something about taking a look at the creature in its element. Maybe it's because it opens a whole world of possibilities when it comes to the search for Bigfoot. For example, where is the father? Is this actually how the Bigfoot family dynamics work? Do a pair copulate before the father wanders off while the mother takes care of the young? Actually, is this an anomaly, and do the Sasquatches maintain a massive compound family unit? Understandably, the skeptics couldn't watch while everyone remained happy and content with the thought that we may actually be up to something with this mother and child pair. After all, this could very well be some hoaxers doing their thing. As wild as it may actually sound, maybe there are some hoaxers that have the time to get their kids to wear gorilla costumes so that they could take walks in the heat. Just on the off chance that some strangers would capture a recording of them. As you can imagine, not too many people are willing to keep up with this level of cynicism. They can see how authentic the movements of these creatures are for themselves, and as such, there is hope that this could be the groundbreaking piece of evidence that could help us prove that Bigfoot is really out there. Until then, we can only hope that we continue making use of these drones to tackle the legend that is Bigfoot. Sure, there are many hoaxers out there causing problems for this search for this fabled being, but thankfully these drones will be a vital tool that would help us bring the mystery of Bigfoot to an end. Piercing through some of the most remote places on the planet, they may be the only tool that we have to bring such a mystery to an end. Going further than any human could ever go, let's just wait and see how long it would take for these drones to help us bring the legend of Bigfoot to an end. From the early days of running into the fabled hominid in its element, to the use of modern technology to capture one of the most significant recordings when it comes to the legend that is Bigfoot, here is how this drone entered a restricted forest in a bid to capture the most shocking footage of Bigfoot ever.